Is tech sales a good career path if you are an introvert? Or what if you don't do too well with stress? And more importantly, what if you're not the type of person who does well under pressure? Is tech sales still a good career path? Don't worry guys, we're gonna address all these questions right now. Oh hey, what's going on everybody? Untitled Chapter here, aka the best dressed man in tech sales, don't forget it. And in this video, we're gonna talk about, from a personality perspective, who is best suited for a career in tech sales? Do the introverts have an advantage? Do the extroverts have an advantage? What about folks who can't deal with stress? And we want to talk about this because a lot of folks think that you have to be an extrovert to succeed at sales. And a lot of folks think that if you're introverted, it's a terrible career path. So what we hope to do is give you some real data points based on my 10 years of experience in tech sales, and hopefully allow you to walk away from this video with a better understanding of, depending on how you identify as a person, is this career path really good and suited for you or not so much? So point number one that we want to discuss is the whole introvert versus extrovert debate, right? There's a lot of talk. You could just Google it. You'll find so many articles about people saying that extroverts have an advantage in sales and that introverts are not going to be as effective. And there's this overall stigma and stereotype that salespeople have to be these super outgoing, charismatic, energetic people. And I just got to tell you guys, that could not be further from the truth. And one thing that I want to point you guys towards, there's an individual, his name is Kyle Axay, I believe. And he even runs a website called, I think it's salesforintroverts.com or something like that. And his whole positioning is that he's an introvert and he's not an extrovert by any means. So just know that there are already influencers in the sales world, people who are in the sales world that have taken this stand on showing that you don't need to be an extrovert in sales. So if that is something that you have hanging around up here, throw that belief away because it's not valid. There's so many folks who identify as introverts that I know personally as well who have excelled in tech sales. So if we aim to answer the question outright of who is this career path better suited for, extroverts or introverts, honestly the answer is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And it doesn't matter at all because with the personality types, extrovert and introvert, you have certain strengths and weaknesses that align to this job. For example, I identify as an extrovert. That means that I have no problem socializing with my customers. I have no problem talking to 10 people in one day. I get energy from that, right? Now, an introvert, maybe they have the advantage over me because they're gonna be, I don't know, maybe less distracted. Maybe they're able to really get in the zone, dwell in their solitude, and really put out some deep work and crank out amazing output as they're not meeting with people, right? Maybe they're able to say no more effectively to their customers than I would because maybe I just like the opportunity to socialize with them more, right? So I think, again, depending on where you fall on this scale of introvert, extroverted, you're gonna have certain strengths or weaknesses that help you or don't help you do this job, right? But the point is, you're gonna have to experiment and see, because nobody can tell you outright, hey, you're an introvert, you're not cut out for this, or you're an extrovert, you're perfect for this. It just doesn't exist, and it's not a real good way to assess whether or not you're a good fit for the job. Point number two, when it comes to the pressure of being in sales, right? A lot of folks say, oh, I can't deal with the pressure. Is sales for me? Sales is high pressure. Hold on. We need to dispel some common myths. Number one, a lot of people believe that sales in itself is just this high pressure, high demand job. Don't get me wrong, it can be, but it really comes down to the culture and the company that you work at. For example, I know people personally who at their companies, they haven't sold anything for 12 months, right? Me, myself, when I first got into tech sales, I didn't sell anything for 6 months. I didn't get fired. The person I know that didn't sell anything for 12 months, they're still working for their company. So I think a lot of people have this misconception of sales being super high pressure. It's not that high pressure as you think, okay? I'm not saying it's pressureless, right? There is some pressure, but it's not as high and intense as you think. And the other proof point or data point that you can use to relax this concern a little bit is the fact that every new salesperson gets what's called a ramping quota. And they even get something called a ghost period, which means when you first get hired, they literally are giving you 3 months in most cases where they basically pay you as though you're making sales, because they know you're not going to make sales, right? They know for the first 90 days, you're just going to be learning stuff, understanding how things work, talking to customers, and they know you're not going to sell right away. So use that to relax yourself a little bit and realize that sales is not as high pressure as you think. One other point you might want to think about real quick is you might be asking yourself, well, how can I find out if the culture of the company is high pressure before I start working there, right? What if I accept the job and it's too late? It's this super high pressure environment. What do I do? Here's the easy way that you can find out the culture and if the company is a high pressure environment or not before you get the job. All you have to do is, while you're interviewing, or even before you interview, find employees on LinkedIn who are in sales that work for this company you want to interview at, and just ping them. Ask them, hey, I'm thinking about interviewing at your company. One thing I'm worried about is whether or not it's a high pressure environment. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience there? And even ask them to jump on the phone for 5 minutes and tell you a little bit about what it's like at end of quarter, what it's like at the end of the year, and are they receiving a lot of pressure from management? So if you're looking for a way to understand, is this a high pressure culture and environment before you get the job, go ahead and do that using LinkedIn, all right? Point number 3 that we want to address is if you're someone who doesn't identify as doing well with stress and you really want to minimize your stress levels, you might be thinking, oh my God, tech sales is not for me. I can't do sales in general. Here's the thing with that. Number 1, if you try, you will get to experiment with your own levels of resistance to stress, okay? I genuinely believe it's like working out at the gym. You don't know your levels. You don't know how much you can take, how much you can bench press until you really max out the load and give it a shot, right? People think that their limit is here. It might be here, or maybe it's here, whatever it is, right? But I think doing it and giving it a shot to at least test where you fall might be a good idea. The other thing to understand is this. Maybe it doesn't have to be sales. If you just get into tech in general, there are other related roles that have much less pressure on them. For example, the customer success manager role is one that I would say has significantly less pressure. And in that role, you are taking care of existing customers. You are not cold calling. You are not doing cold email. You're just taking care of maybe a dozen, maybe 20, 30 customers, and you're just making sure that they're happy, they want to renew, and in some cases, you might even get paid on the renewals. So customer success manager, renewals manager, relationship manager, these are roles that are related to sales, but don't necessarily have that new logo quota, okay? So you're not gonna be tasked with going after new customers, having to have awkward conversations, doing cold calling and all that high pressure stuff, okay? You're just going to have to make sure current customers are happy, they're renewing their contracts, and that's a heck of a lot easier than going after new customers for the first time. There you have it, guys. That's my take on the personality types that are best suited for tech sales. But before we go, let's just do a quick recap so we don't forget what we talked about. Point number 1, we talked about the introvert versus extrovert debate. It is a myth, you guys. It doesn't exist. I know plenty of people personally who have succeeded as extroverts or introverts in sales. So again, it doesn't matter. Number 2, when it comes to the pressure, it's going to depend strongly on the company and the company's culture. So we talked about experimenting a little bit, but also while you're interviewing or before you interview, go ahead and reach out to some of the employees on LinkedIn and ask them for their feedback on what the culture is like and if at end of quarter, end of year, they're receiving a lot of pressure from management. That's going to easily help you assess whether or not this environment is good for you. Number 3, we talked about how you'll be able to experiment and actually test your own levels of resistance towards stress if you get into a tech sales role, but also we talked about the other related roles that have a lot less pressure with them. For example, the customer success role, the renewals manager role, the relationship manager role. So again, if you think that sales and carrying a quota and going after new customers might be too much, you can look at the customer success or renewals manager roles. I highly suggest you do that because they have a lot less pressure. And again, you're just taking care of existing customers, no cold calling, no cold emailing. There you have it, folks. That's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, please hit the subscribe button below. Also, if you're not doing so already, follow me on LinkedIn. And last but not least, if you are trying to break into tech sales or if you're already in sales and you're looking for ways to differentiate yourself from other sellers in the market, go ahead and check us out at the B2B Syndicate. See what we got cooking up over there. All right. With that said, hope you enjoyed the video and I'll catch you guys in the next one.